Welcome to a drive-by coding session. I have a friend, his name is Waikit, and he likes to dabble in code and learn new things by the way of trial and error. I'm going to replay one of his coding sessions and explain what he did. So this time, Waikit is going to learn about the Canvas API. So he's going to set up a canvas and figure out how to draw some stuff on it. Just something really basic. Waikit prefers to use TypeScript, and TypeScript's tagline is JavaScript that scales. If you are not familiar with TypeScript, but you are familiar with JavaScript, you should be able to follow along just fine. In order to use TypeScript in a basic bare-bone web application, Waikit uses this Yeoman generator called the generator TS web, which you will see. So let's get started. So he starts off by using the Yeoman generator, as we've said, to generate some files, which it does. It looks like 6 files were generated, and Yeoman also greets us with this nice caricature of himself. I'll briefly go over some of the files that were created. So one is gitignore, which just prevents the node modules folder from being checked into source control. A basic HTML template, TypeScript file. This is just template code. You're gonna replace it. Package.json defines what the development dependencies that are needed to build TypeScript and other things required for this workflow. The most important of the dependencies are TypeScript and Webpack. There is a configuration file for TypeScript, and there is also a configuration file for Webpack. Okay, so once this is done, npm install is done to install all of the dependencies needed. Then npm start is ran to get the development server running. Since this is replay mode, I'm going to run that separately. Let me see if it's already running. It's already running, so we're good. So now I'm going to start the coding session and follow along with what Waikit was doing. So the first thing is he just changes the title of the HTML file, and now he creates a canvas element dynamically using the document.createElement API. Alternatively, you could have created a canvas element like so inside the HTML file, but Waikit chose to create it dynamically instead. He gives the canvas a width and height of 500 pixels. It also styles it using CSS to give it a black border. And then now he appends it to the document, and we can see the canvas now is visible. We can see this black border. If it weren't for this black border, actually, it would just not be visible. Yeah. So, oops. Yeah. So there's the canvas, and we're ready to draw on it. Before you can draw on a canvas, you have to create a drawing context for it. So you do that by calling canvas.getContext with a parameter of the string 2D. There are other types of drawing contexts that you can create by passing in a different parameter, but we're going to use 2D, which is the simplest one to learn. Okay, so now that we have a context object he abbreviates it as CTX. He is going to call this fillRect API, which it draws a rectangle. Well, in this case, a square for him. So what do these parameters here mean? There's 3 100s. Well, let's see it in detail. So this is the coordinate system of the canvas. Okay, let's see how the coordinate system of the canvas works. So the coordinate system starts at 0, 0 at the top left corner. So the x-axis runs from left to right at the coordinate 0 on the far left edge, and in this case 500 because we have a width of 500. So, and this is the x-axis, and if we subdivide the 500 into 5 chunks, let's just put some tick marks in here. Then I have 100 here, 200, 300, and 400. Same thing with the y-axis, which runs vertical. Also 0 on the top, and then 500 at the bottom. And we'll also draw some tick marks here. So here I'll also write out the tick marks. So 100, 200, 300, and 400. And again, this one is the y-axis. I'll create a snapshot here so I can reuse this grid later. So now we can talk about what these parameters mean. So the first two numbers, 100 and 100, refer to the coordinate at the top left corner of this box. And you can see this coordinate corresponds to 100 and 100. Oh, actually, maybe it's the other way around. It's 100, 100. In either case, 100, 100 is this dot here. The next number, the next 100, refers to the width of this box here. So this is 100. And then the next one refers to the height of the box. This is 100. So by telling canvas to fill the rect with 100, 100, 100, 100, what we're saying is, hey, draw a rectangle starting at the coordinate 100, 100, and draw it with a width of 100 and a height of 100. So if we wanted to draw a box of a different size, maybe here. You're gonna draw a box like this. Whoa, maybe not rainbow colored just yet. We'll get there. But for this time, just draw a box that's black, just like this one, and that occupies the space here. How do you draw it? What numbers? They won't be these numbers anymore. What numbers should we put in here? So I'd like you to answer this. If you like a moment to think about it, you can always pause the video. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about it. Okay, if you did it, congratulations. You have just used the Canvas API to draw a rectangle. Or if you just want to enjoy the show, well, let's see. So first thing we need to figure out is the coordinate, the top left coordinate of this box, which is this point here. Actually, let me start over. No, yeah, let me start over here. Okay, so So I'm gonna draw this box one more time so it's not quite so cluttered. Okay, so we want to draw the box here. So the first thing we want to figure out is what is the coordinate of this point? Well, we can read it off of the axis here. The x coordinate is 200. So, and the y coordinate is also 200. So the first two numbers should be 200 and 200. What about the next two numbers? Well, we want the third number should be the width of this box. What's the width of this box? Well, it's the coordinate of the right edge of the box, which is 400, minus the difference between that and the coordinate of the left edge of this box. So the answer is 400 minus 200. 400 minus 200. I feel like Salman Khan right now doing math. Okay, so the next number is also 200. And then what about the fourth number, which should be the height of this box? Well, that's this, the difference between this position, 400, and this position. That's also 400 minus 200, also 200. Okay, so the way to produce this box then, well, filled in, is to put in the numbers 200, 200, 200, and 200. Let's try that. Yes, okay. So, okay, going back to this. So next, you can also change the color of the box you want to draw. Because we are asking Canvas to fill something. Whenever you ask Canvas to fill something, you can tell Canvas what is the fill style to change the color. So here we can do orange or red. You can also use pound sign colors. If you're a web developer, you will know this well. You can also use RGB colors as well. So I'll do red. So this means red at the brightest and then green and blue at the dimmest. If I combine red and green, I get yellow. That's color theory at play there. Okay, so now in addition to being able to fill a rectangle, you can also stroke a rectangle, which creates an outline around the rectangle. Okay, and you can do both of them one after another, and both of them will be respected. So here we have first it strokes the rectangle with the red color, and then it fills the rectangle with orange. Okay, so the next thing Waikit wants to do is to make a grid. So he first moves this square to the top left corner of the entire canvas, the coordinate of which is 0, 0, as you remember. I will show you the grid. Yeah. So as you remember, the top left corner of the canvas is 0, 0. Then he repeats this stroke rect line, but only changing the x coordinate. So the next rectangle that was struck at the coordinate 100, 0. So now we have, so the first rectangle, this one was 0, 0, which started at here. So that was this one. The second one was 100, 0. So if we just incrementally increase the x coordinate of each successive rectangle, we'll get this grid effect. So That's what Waikit is going for. And now we have a row of grids. Now, at this point, we have 5 lines of code that look very, very similar to each other. So, and if you've been programming for a while, you know that having repetitive code is not desirable, and it violates something you might have heard of called the DRI Principle, which stands for don't repeat yourself. So there are more than one way to remove repetition of code, but one of them is by using a for loop. So you can do something like this. So if you want to do a similar thing 5 times, you can write a for loop that will iterate 5 times. And this is a very standard way of doing that. We'll make a counter variable, call it I, which will start at 0, and then each successive time going through the loop, it'll increase by 1. So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but not including 5. Now, if we want this for loop to generate the exact same behavior as these 5 repetitive lines of code, what we want to do is calculate dynamically an x that varies with each iteration of the loop. And we want that x to match the numbers that we provided to each successive one of these statements. So how can we calculate the correct x? So that's a question for you. I'd like you to think about the answer, and if you need more time, you can always pause the video. So what should we write here on the right hand side of this statement to give the correct x to reproduce exactly these 5 statements? Okay, so if you did it, congratulations. You are an excellent remover of repetitive code. Or if you just want to enjoy the show, the answer is I times 100. And now, as you can see, we get a grid just as before. So how does this work? Well, we have I counting each time. So we have this I counter variable alternating, or not alternating, but increasing each time through the loop, taking on these 5 different values, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we take each of these and multiply them by 100, the value that we would get is exactly these. Okay, so now the next step is to get the rows of grids in addition to just the columns. And the way that Waikit does it is, again, making a copy and then just tweaking one thing about it. In this case, he just modifies the y coordinate because whereas for the first row of results, or for the first row of grids, the for loop starting at 0, 0, and then 100, 0, and then 200, 0, and so forth. The next time we want it to do the same thing, but at the y coordinate of 100 instead. So starting here, 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 and then finally there. So he just made a copy of this code here and then moved it down and changed the y coordinate from 0 to 100 to make this happen. He does this a few more times to get the successive rows. And now we have the same problem. We have a lot of repetitive code. And to solve this issue, again, Waikit uses the for loop. It's the exact same trick, but wrapped around the previous for loop that we've generated. And then this time we want to dynamically generate the value of y, which we can calculate very much the same way. This time is the counter variable on the outer loop times 100 to get the value of y. And now we plug in y into this stroke rect call, and now we have a grid. Okay, so that's what Waikit did to learn something about drawing things on the canvas. I hope you learned something about how to use the Canvas API as well, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching.